Hello and welcome to episode 15 of my knitting podcast. In this episode I have 3 finished objects to share with you. I also have a new cast on that you haven't seen before and some progress on my older whips. And in addition, there's also going to be a segment about acquisitions and dream knitting towards the end of the video. If we haven't met before, my name is Annika and I'm coming to you from Germany. I am a natural yarn dyer as well as an avid knitter, and I love basically everything that is related to the fiber arts. Let's get started. So the first finished object that I would like to talk about is the one that I am wearing, and this is my Slanted Sleeven cardigan by Annika. Let me get up and give you a better look of the cardigan. So let's talk about it. So this cardigan has been on my needles for quite some time. I started it sometime at the beginning of October of last year, and it took me a bit to finish it, and this was due to several reasons. One of the major reasons being that I wasn't really a fan of how the pattern is written. Don't get me wrong, there are no mistakes in it and contains all the information that you need, but I somehow wasn't really a fan of how it was laid out. I think it was all written in a table, but I found it a bit difficult to get the right stitch count and row count for my size, and this just kept me from wanting to pick it up and work on it, because this is worked with an integrated button band from the top down. So you do have to check the pattern from time to time. It is not one of those more mindless garment knitting projects where you just can knit miles and miles of stockinette once you have split for the sleeves and can just knit back and forth. This wasn't the case, so I found myself procrastinating a bit, although I was very much looking forward to finishing this piece, and I am very happy that I finally did it. Now, the Slanted Sleeven cardigan is originally written to be like a one color cardigan, but I decided to add some color work. So I do have some color work here on the sleeve cuffs and also on the bottom hem. And this was very heavily inspired by another very similar cardigan that I saw on Instagram. So Caroline, who is one of the owners of Honor och Air, who produced the beautiful unspun knitted yarn, she made a very similar version. I'm going to put up a picture so that you can see. And when I saw her picture, I knew that I wanted to make something very similar, and so I did. So this cardigan is knitted with knitted yarn. For the main color I used Nogran, which is this beautiful light brown with a pinkish undertone. And for the color work I used different scraps that I had laying around. So I had ordered a couple of surprise packages from Knitted Yarn, which basically means that you can order, I think, 200 grams worth of yarn and you do not know which colorways you get. They used to do that last year, but I think they have stopped doing that now. And that's why I have so many different colorful scraps here that I was very happy to include in my cardigan. And one of the other reasons that I procrastinated a bit working on this piece was that I at the beginning wasn't sure how I wanted the color work to look. So I originally thought that I would just copy Caroline and use the same color work motifs, and she used the color work from the Lunenburg pullover by Amy Christoffers. But then I thought that I could also come up with my own design, and I experimented a bit with the different colorways, and then I came up with a simple drawing. Let me show you. It's not very fancy, but it did get the job done. So that's what I used, and I used the full motif for the bottom hem, and for the sleeves I only used half of it, so I only started here and then knitted down. In case you would like to do something similar, I think I'm just going to take a picture of this and put it up on my Ravelry project page so that you can see. To be honest, I am not 100% in love with this piece. I think it turned out very beautiful, but I am not 100% happy with how it sits when I wear it open. I was originally intending to add 3 buttons and just wear it open all the time, but then I messed up a little bit when I placed the buttonholes, so they are not evenly spaced, and this is one of the issues. So then I was thinking, okay, I could just add the buttons and just for the look and leave the cardigan open all the time, but it hangs a bit funny. Maybe you saw it when I stood up. It puckers a bit towards the button band, and it also comes up a little bit at the edges of the button band. The middle pulls up just a little. So now I'm thinking I should wear it closed, but then I would have to decide what to do with the unevenly placed buttonholes. One of you sent me a comment or wrote a comment under one of my previous episodes suggesting that I should use some invisible, how do you call that? Clasps? No, that's not right. Snaps. That's it. I'm so sorry. I am still a bit scatterbrained because it is quite early in the morning, so that I should use some invisible snaps and just put the buttons either on top or just leave out the buttons completely, and I think that's a very good idea. I do think that this cardigan would benefit from having some special buttons added to it, but I'm not completely sure what I'm going to do. But I really think I should wear this one closed all the time because I think it will sit a bit nicer then. What else? I used a number of different needle sizes for this project. Let me check. I used a US 3, which corresponds to a 3.25 millimeter needle for the main part of the cardigan. Then I used a US 5 or a 3.75 millimeter needle for the colorwork because I tend to knit a bit tighter when knitting colorwork. And for the sleeves, which are knitted in the round compared to the rest of the cardigan, which is knitted flat, I used a US 7, which corresponds to a 4.5 millimeter needle. And the reason for that is that I tend to knit a lot looser when knitting flat compared to knitting in the round. So my purl stitches are a lot looser than my knit stitches, and this annoys me quite a bit. So that's why I went up several needle sizes for the sleeves, and I think you can still tell that the gauge is looser here on top where I knit flat compared to on the sleeves where I knit in the round, and this does bother me quite a bit, I have to say. I don't think it's the reason that I'm not 100% in love with the cardigan, but it's still very annoying. So if you have any tips how I could prevent this rowing out issue in future knitting projects, please leave a comment and let me know. Okay, so moving on, and the next finished object that I wanted to show you is a hat. And this is my Schneeflöckchen hat that I knitted with Handspun yarn. So this is one of my own knitting patterns. I'm going to link it for you in the description box along with everything else that I'm going to mention in this video. But the pattern was originally written for a DK weight yarn, and this yarn is a lot thicker, so I had to adapt the number of stitches that I casted on. The yarn that I used is Manchelopes from the Spanish company Wool Dreamers, so another unspun yarn like I said, and this one is in the colorway Azul Indigo, which is a very lovely light blue with a gray undertone and some pink specks that I really liked. And I held this one together with just a simple strand of white undyed yarn from Istex, so their unspun yarn is called Pleutolope, and I had that over from a different project, so I combined it with the Manchelopes. And let me give you a closer look. So you have this double folded brim, and you have some simple color work on the body of the hat and another colorwork motif at the crown here, which is meant to resemble a snowflake. And Schneeflöckchen actually means little snowflake in German. And of course the name comes from the fact that this is supposed to look like snow, and it is called Little Snowflake because I made the very first sample of this hat pattern for one of my daughters. Let me put this one up or on so that you can see. I do have my hair up, so it does not sit as nicely compared to having my hair open, but you might be able to tell that this one is a bit tight on me, and yeah, I think I just made it a little bit both too tight and also not long enough. So I think it would have benefited from a couple more stitches at the cast on and also a bit more length in the body. So I am not completely with this one either. I am thinking about ripping it back and just adding a couple more stitches, or maybe going up a needle size for the color work. The brim is knitted as a double folded brim like I mentioned, but you do a provisional cast on and then you join the cast on edge with the live stitches. So that would be a bit annoying to rip out, and I think it fits fine on the brim here, but then it gets a bit tight, maybe due to the color work. So I'm thinking about reknitting this one, but yeah, we'll see if I get around to it. The needle size I used, let me check, was a US 2.5, which corresponds to a 3mm needle. And this was my very first time knitting with the Manchelopi's yarn. So I have knitted quite a bit last year with Handspun yarn, but it was mainly Plötulopi and Nutiden. And I also wanted to try the Manchelopi's. I do really like it. I think it makes for a very soft, airy and light piece. And I think it took me only 50 grams of this plate to knit the hat. So it is a very lightweight hat. But yeah, like I said, the fit is not completely on point. Anyway, let's move on. Alright, and the last finished object that I wanted to show you is a pair of socks. And this is my very first pair of handspun socks, to be specific. Let me give you a closer look and tell you a bit more about this project. Now, I did get a spinning wheel only in May of last year, which means that I am still very much a beginner spinner, and you can really tell in this project, but I love them anyway because it is just such a great feeling to spin the yarn yourself and then knit with it. I already very much enjoy knitting my own handmade garments or accessories, but first spinning the fiber and then knitting with it is a whole nother level of excitement and joy, I guess. So what I did here, I ordered a sock set from Frau Wölfchen, which I'm going to link for you down below. It is called the South Down sock set because it is made out of 100% South Down fiber, and when you order the set you get 2 braids, so you can spin 1 braid for each sock. The colorway I have, by the way, is called Melancholie, which simply means melancholy in German. So I got the fiber and then I was so excited and I immediately spun the first braid, and because it turned out so well, I spun it as a 2-ply. I immediately started knitting with it, and this is how the first sock came out. So this one was knitted with a US 1.5, which corresponds to a 2.5mm needle, and I casted on 44 stitches for this project, and it took me 59 grams. So then, after I had finished the first sock, of course I wanted to make the second sock, and I spun the second braid. So that was a couple of weeks after the first one, and I thought that I had spun it just more or less at the same thickness, but I clearly did not. So let me give you another close-up. You are probably able to tell that this sock is a lot thicker than this one, and it's also a lot stiffer, and the stripes, or I guess you can call it the striping effect, is also very different from the first sock. So the stripes are a lot more pronounced here, and you have like a softer transition in the first sock. And this took me quite some time to figure out how to knit the first sock in a way so that it would resemble more or less the first sock. So I had to frog, I think, my beginnings several times, and in the end I decided to cast on 36 stitches for the second sock, and I used a US 2.5, which corresponds to a 3mm needle, and this sock took in total 71 grams to knit. so 71 grams compared to 59 grams, and I couldn't believe it that there is such a large difference in the weight of the socks, and I was quite happy that I didn't run out of yarn, because that would have really been a bummer. But I did have some leftover yarns from the first sock that I could then use for this one. So in the end, I think it turned out fine, but it was quite an ordeal and not very enjoyable at times. But I was on a mission at the beginning of the year to finish some of my lingering whips, so that's what I did, and I'm very happy that I was able to finish the cardigan, the hat, and also the socks. Let's move on to works in progress now, and I have one new cast on that I am very excited to share with you, because it was part of my 2025 knitting plans video, which I'm going to link for you in case you're interested. And it is the sweater number 12 by My Favourite Things Knitwear. And as you can see, I have made quite a lot of progress on this one as already, but that's because this is just so enjoyable to knit. I have made I think the sweater number 28 by My Favourite Things Knitwear last year, and it is one of my most favorite pieces to wear, and I also simply adored the knitting process because it was so much fun. So that's why I decided to knit another pattern from My Favourite Things Knitwear, and I landed on the sweater number 12 because I love everything that is striped. And I also really like this ribbed look. So this is actually broken rib. I'm not sure if you'll be able to tell, but broken rib basically means that you knit one round and on the next round you do knit one, purl one, and alternate. So basically you do ribbing, but it is broken up by the knit rounds every other round. So this gives this very nice look, and the project is not only very interesting or fun to knit because of the pattern, but also because of the yarn. Let me show you. So this is, so this is yarn that was very kindly gifted to me from the South Korean yarn brand Neck Yang Yarns. And the base is called A Cashmere, and it is a blend of 60% merino, 30% baby alpaca, and 10% cashmere. And the two colorways that I'm using are the 535 light gray and the 540 navy. And I'm absolutely in love with this yarn. It is extremely soft and a joy to knit. I am a little bit concerned about how it is going to wear. I am expecting that it might pill a lot, because not only does it contain both cashmere and merino, it is also, I think, a single ply yarn. So when I started feeling concerned about the wear of this piece, I was a bit annoyed at myself that I didn't think about that prior to starting this knit, because I think it would have helped a lot if I would have added a strand of a silk mohair to go with it, and this would have probably have brought a lot of stability to this piece. And yeah, I'm a bit annoyed at myself that I didn't think about that earlier, but I think now it's just too late. I'm not going to unravel my whole work here, and I'm just going to treat this as an experiment and see how it works, and then I can also report back to you, of course. But overall, this is a project that I can 100% recommend, both the pattern and the yarn. And if you would like to give Neck Yang Yarns a try, they have very kindly set up a coupon code just for you. So if you use the code Rosemary and Pines, all caps, I'm also going to put it in the description box for you. You will get a 10% discount when you order from them. They ship within Europe. So my next work in progress is one that I've already talked about in the last episode. And this is my SoHo Square by Jackie Rose. Unfortunately, I am again in the middle of a row. Sorry about that. So I'm not going to be able to show you properly, but this piece has gotten quite long already, so it is anyway a bit difficult to show. But maybe I can talk a bit about the construction, and then you can envision how this is going to look. Now, this pattern comes in 3 different sizes. You can make a very small version, which is called a wink. Then you can make the medium size, which is a scarf, and I'm making the largest size called a wrap. And this is a square piece that has a very interesting geometrical shaping, and I am heavily modifying it to fit my preferences. So the yarn that I am using is the Sunday Morning 4-ply by Sonde Yarn Co. And I have ordered 4 skeins of this, 1 for each colorway. I have already worked with 3 of the colors. So we have the gray, which is one of the 2 main colors, called Stormy Weather. Then this deep aubergine color is called Ritual, and this, how would you call it? Like a dusty corally pink maybe. So that is Cut Flowers. And the 4th color that I'm going to add, this is the 2nd main color, this greenish blue with a muted gray undertone. So this is called Personal Space. So this is a very enjoyable, mindless project that I like to pick up when I am a bit occupied with something else. For example, when I help my daughters with their homework, I usually have this one next to me, and then I can knit on it because it is so mindless and fun. And let me think. I did a couple of modifications to the pattern. So the pattern is originally written to be all garter stitch, so meaning that you knit all the time, and since you are knitting back and forth, you get these classic garter ridges. But I am not a huge fan of garter stitch. I like it in some projects, but not all the time, so that's why I decided to choose a different pattern, but I wanted it to be reversible, and that's why I decided to use seed stitch, which means that I knit one, purl one, and repeat, and on the next row the stitch that was knitted the row before is then purled or knitted again, but it looks like a purl on the right side. I hope you know what I mean. So then you get this seed stitch look, which I quite like. And since I only ordered one skein of each colorway, and the large size of this pattern is supposed to have 2 skeins of the 2 main colors, I don't think that I will manage to get a square out of that. Mine is going to be probably more like a rectangular wrap, but I'm completely fine with that because this piece is already quite big and I have not even knitted half of it. So I am going to continue knitting with the Stormy Weather until I run out, and then I'm going to do the 2nd triangle with the Personal Space as the main color. And then I'm very interested to see how this one will block out, and I guess it will be just a huge cozy piece to wrap myself in. The needle size I am using is a US 4, which corresponds to a 3.5mm needle. Alright, so my next work in progress is another more recent cast on, and it is the Ixchel by Catherine Clark. I casted this one on New Year's Eve, and I was thinking about knitting this pattern for a very long time. It was on the cover of Pom Pom magazine years back, and I have adored this pattern ever since, but to be honest, I was a bit intimidated by this all over color work. But then I decided to just be courageous and start it and just see how it turns out, and I did. But I am not sure if I made the right yarn choice, so that's why I stopped. And I have already talked about this issue in my last episode, and thank you so much for everyone who took the time to comment. I think you were completely right with regards to the contrast color. But if you have not watched this episode, let me give you a look at what I am talking about. So I have knitted a swatch, and I have tried to knit the color work with just the contrast color, and I have also added a strand of mohair. I had tried both a silver mohair and a gold one, and I really like the look of the gold mohair. This is, let me see, it's that one from Isaiah, and I really like how it looks and also how it feels. But of course, if you add a strand of silk mohair to any garment, it gives it this characteristic fuzzy look, and it softens the edges. And a lot of you said that you thought that since this is such an intricate design with this all over color work all over the body and the sleeves, that it might lose a bit of its appeal if I add the mohair. And I think you are completely right. I felt the same after knitting one round of color work. I was starting to second guess myself, and then I just stopped and have not picked it up ever since. So what I think I'm going to do now is just rip back this one round and then start over, but this time only using the contrast color and omitting the mohair completely. By the way, the yarn that I'm using is again Sonder Yarn Co, but this time I'm using the Sunday Morning Luxe Sport that has some added cashmere in it, and it feels very nice and soft. The colorways that I'm using are cover to cover is the navy one, and the gray one is again Stormy Weather, so the same colorway that I'm using in my SoHo Square. And I think this is going to make a very beautiful piece, but it's also going to be a lot of work. So I expect to be working on this sweater for the next couple of months at least, but I'll definitely keep you updated on how it goes. So the next whip that I want to share with you is one that I have not shown in a couple of episodes because it used to be a lingering whip, and I have just decided to bring it out again and start working on it. And this is my vintage dress, which I am knitting from an old pattern that I got off of Etsy, and it is from the 70s. And the reason that I did not work on this at all for the last couple of months is that I started to be a bit insecure if this dress would fit me because it looked very tight on the cord, and I have just put it on a piece of waist yarn and tried it on because, funny story, I have actually filmed this video already yesterday, and in this first incarnation of the knitting podcast I put this one on the waist yarn and tried it on in front of the camera. And when I wanted to edit the video yesterday evening, I realized that it was completely overexposed. I was filming with a new camera, and apparently I messed up the settings and it's pretty much not usable, so I decided to refilm again today. But if the part where I put on the dress is looking somewhat decent, I'm going to insert it here. But you know what? Since you are currently here and are holding me accountable, why don't I finally stop procrastinating and put this thing on a piece of waist yarn and try it on? Let's do that now. Okay, the whole thing is on waist yarn now. Now let me try it on. Oh my god, you guys, it fits and it looks really nicely. Let me see if I can show you. I'm very, very happy with the fit, and I'm so thrilled that I finally stopped procrastinating and just simply tried this stupid thing on. So thank you so much for being here and for encouraging me with this project. Not right now, of course, but along the way. So I'm very, very happy with how this is coming along, and I already feel the excitement inside me being reignited and finally being able to start working on this piece again. Now let's do a quick outfit change just so that you can see, because I was very excited when I had finally stopped procrastinating and put this piece on a piece of waist yarn and tried it on, and I was so happy to see that it actually does fit. This is an all-over lace pattern, and lace naturally tends to stretch quite a bit anyway, so I am very happy that this is also the case here. And we'll see. I am going to knit a couple more rounds on the body, and then I'm going to add a section of ribbing. This is not part of the pattern, but I am basing this off of a store-bought dress that I have, that I think bought maybe 15 years ago or so, but it is not a 100% wool dress, and that's why I would love to replace it with something hand knitted. So I am using this one a bit as the role model, I would say, and try to come up with my own design for this dress, and I think it's going to look very pretty. So I am thinking about adding a couple of centimeters of ribbing just at the waist, and then this is going to pull the dress in a bit and make it look a bit blousy. And then I also want to add some pockets because I love dresses that have pockets. And yeah, let's see how this one is going to turn out, but I'm very excited to start working on this again. I also really like the yarn combination, which is again knitted in yarn from Honorock Air. This is the colorway Apostrophe, and I'm holding it together with the tin silk mohair from Sadness Garn in the colorway 3511. And I think this makes for a very, very pretty combination. Let me give you a closer look. I absolutely love how this is turning out. So thanks again for reminding me to keep working on this piece, because I think it is just a very stunning design, and I think I will get a lot of wear out of it once it's done. Let's move on to dream knitting and acquisitions. And I'm sorry that I talk so much about unspun yarn in this episode, but that's just the way it is. I only discovered knitted in yarn and unspun yarn in general at the beginning of last year, and I have really fallen in love with it because it is so versatile. I really like the depth of the colorways, and I just love this yarn. So I'm sorry, but I have to show you more knitted in yarn, and I got these two colorways in the knitted in shop update at the beginning of 2024. So let me give you a closer look. I'm not sure if you'll be able to tell. They do, or they tend to look quite similar on camera or on screen, but in real life I think they look very different. My favorite of these two is definitely this one, which is called Morning Light, and that's truly what it is. It looks gray from afar, but if you look closer, you can really tell that there is both a light blue and also a soft pink in it. And I was recently on a morning walk with our dog, Bonnie, and I had a look at the sky and I immediately thought about this beautiful colorway. I'm going to put up the picture for you so that you can see. So that is truly what it is, the Morning Light. And this one is called the Daylight. Caroline, who is the owner of Honorock Air, described it really well, and she said that this is just how the Swedish sky looks in the winter. It's very overcast and very cloudy, and it's gray, light gray, and here in Germany it can look very similar during the darker months in the winter time, but I still very much enjoy it. I am a big fan of all gray and neutral tones anyway, and I think this one is also very beautiful. So the Daylight and the Morning Light. I have 300 grams of both of these colors. I am not completely sure what I'm going to knit with them. I am toying with the idea of using the Morning Light to knit the Champagne Pullover by Sari Nordland. I have had this one on my dream to knit list for this year for quite some time, but yeah, I'm not sure if this is the best yarn choice, but I would imagine that colorway like this one would look very nice in the Champagne Pullover. I'm toying with the idea of holding it together with a strand of a silk mohair, so that 300 grams will be enough, but we'll see. I'll definitely keep you posted. And another acquisition that I wanted to show you is not yarn but a magazine, and it is the Finnish Knits magazine by Laine. And this was very kindly gifted to me because I just created a video all about Finnish knitwear designers and Finnish knitting patterns, in which I also talked about this magazine, and I got the chance to check it out. Let me see if I can give you a bit of an impression of how it looks. It has some stunning photography and also some very, very beautiful knitting patterns in it. You should definitely check it out if you enjoy the Finnish design aesthetic. One more, because it's just too beautiful. I absolutely adore it. So if you would like to know more about Finnish knitwear designers and Finnish knitting patterns, I recommend that you have a look at this video next. And happy knitting until next time. Bye guys!